Hey there! You're here to learn something new, and that already makes you awesome. You're ahead of the game. Today we're diving into the history of America. But before we begin, let's see how much you already know. Here's how this works. A quick quiz to test your starting level. A deep dive into history that will boost your knowledge. A final quiz at the end to see how much you've learned. Now let's determine your level in American history. Level 1, Explorer. Basic knowledge. In what year was the Declaration of Independence signed? A. 1607, B. 1776, C. 1865, D. 1492. Which of these people was not a U.S. president? A. Benjamin Franklin, B. Thomas Jefferson, C. John Adams, D. James Madison. What was the first capital of the United States after the Constitution was adopted? A. Washington, D.C. B. Boston. C. Philadelphia. D. New York. If you got all three right, great job. You've got a solid foundation in American history. If you missed one or more, don't worry. This video is perfect for you. By the end, you'll know a lot more. Now, let's step it up. Level 2, Patriot, intermediate knowledge. Which territory did the U.S. purchase from France in 1803? Florida, Louisiana, Texas, Alaska. What battle was the turning point of the American Civil War? Battle of Antietam, Battle of Gettysburg, Battle of Fort Sumter, Battle of Chickamauga. Which amendment to the U.S. Constitution abolished slavery? 1st, 10th, 13th, 19th. If you ace this round, you're doing great. You're on your way to becoming a true history expert. But now comes the toughest challenge, the Founding Father level. Can you handle it? Level 3, Founding Father, advanced knowledge. Which of these events happened first? The start of the California Gold Rush, the end of the Civil War, the adoption of the Bill of Rights, the purchase of Alaska. Who was the only U.S. president elected for more than 2 terms? Theodore Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson, Harry Truman. Which document officially ended the American Revolutionary War? The U.S. Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Treaty of Paris, 1783, the Federalist Papers. And that's the end of the quiz. Now count your correct answers. 1 to 3 points. You're an explorer, just starting your journey into American history. 4 to 6 points. You're a patriot. You've got solid knowledge, but there's still room to grow. 7 to 9 points. You're a founding father. You know American history inside and out. So, how did you do? No matter your score, you're about to level up. Now let's break down the key events that shaped the United States century by century. We'll start in the 1600s with the first European settlers and move forward to the modern day. Stay sharp. At the end, you'll take the final quiz to see just how much you've learned. Let's dive in. 17th century, the dawn of colonization. Welcome to the 1600s, where the seeds of what would become the United States were planted. This century was all about European explorers, settlements, and, let's be honest, a lot of struggling to survive. In 1607, the English established Jamestown, Virginia, the first permanent English colony. Unlike the Spanish, who were busy looting gold in South America, the English were here for tobacco, a crop that would later shape the economy of the southern colonies. But life wasn't easy. Between disease, food shortages, and conflicts with indigenous tribes, only about 60 out of the original 500 settlers survived the first few years. Then in 1620, the Pilgrims arrived on the Mayflower, landing at Plymouth Rock. Unlike the profit-driven Jamestown settlers, the Pilgrims were seeking religious freedom. But let's be real. Landing in Massachusetts in November wasn't the best idea. Half of them didn't survive the first winter. Luckily, they formed an alliance with the local Wampanoag tribe, who helped them learn how to farm and fish. And just like that, the first Thanksgiving happened in 1621, a feast that is now more about turkey and football than survival. By the end of the 1600s, British colonies were spreading along the East Coast, laying the foundation for what would eventually become the United States. But trouble was brewing. 18th century, revolution and independence. The 1700s were all about one big idea: breaking free from Britain. The colonies were thriving, but they were also getting fed up with British rule. The British government, trying to recover from its expensive wars, started taxing the colonies without giving them representation in Parliament. The response? Angry protests, boycotts, and eventually, revolution. In 1775, the first shots of the American Revolutionary War were fired at Lexington and Concord. 1 year later, on July 4th, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was signed, officially breaking ties with Britain. Thomas Jefferson, just 33 years old, wrote most of it. Can you imagine writing one of the most important documents in history at that age? The war raged on for several years, but in 1781, General George Washington led his troops to victory at Yorktown, forcing Britain to surrender. The official end came with the Treaty of Paris in 1783, which formally recognized the United States as an independent nation. Now, America needed a government. In 1787, the U.S. Constitution was drafted in Philadelphia, establishing the framework for the new country. Let's lock this in. September 17th, 1787 is Constitution Day. It took 2 years of debates and compromises, but in 1789, George Washington became the first president. America was officially in business. 19th century, expansion and civil war. The 1800s were all about growth, conflict, and transformation. In 1703, President Thomas Jefferson made a deal that doubled the size of the U.S. overnight, the Louisiana Purchase. He bought 828,000 square miles of land from France for just $15 million, which is about 4 cents per acre. Imagine buying half a continent for less than the price of a cup of coffee today. But not everything was smooth sailing. The issue of slavery was dividing the country. As America expanded westward, the debate over whether new states should allow slavery became more intense. By 1861, the conflict exploded into the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln, elected in 1860, led the Union through the war. In 1863, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that enslaved people in Confederate states were free. The war ended in 1865, but not before Lincoln was assassinated. The 13th Amendment, passed that same year, officially abolished slavery across the United States. Let's fix this date, December 6, 1865, the day slavery was legally abolished. By the late 1800s, America was industrializing fast. Railroads connected the coasts, cities boomed, and immigrants arrived in record numbers, chasing the American dream. The 20th century, war, innovation, and civil rights. If the 19th century was about building America, the 20th was about America shaping the world. In 1917, the U.S. entered World War I, helping bring it to an end the following year. Then came the Roaring '20s, a decade of economic growth, jazz, and, well, illegal alcohol, thanks to Prohibition. But the party didn't last. The Great Depression hit in 1929, leaving millions unemployed. In 1941, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, the U.S. entered World War II, leading the charge against Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. By 1945, America emerged as a global superpower. Then came the Cold War, a decades-long rivalry with the Soviet Union that brought nuclear threats, space races, and spy movies. Speaking of space, in 1969, the US put a man on the moon. "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," said Neil Armstrong as he took his first steps on the lunar surface. Back on Earth, the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s, led by Martin Luther King Jr., fought against racial segregation. His famous "I Have a Dream" speech in 1963 remains one of the most powerful messages of equality in history. 21st century, a changing America. The new millennium began with tragedy. The 9/11 attacks in 2001 reshaped global politics. The US launched the War on Terror, entering long conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq. Meanwhile, technology revolutionized daily life. The iPhone debuted in 2007, social media took over, and today we carry more computing power in our pockets than NASA had in 1969. In 2008, Barack Obama became the first African-American president, marking a major milestone in US history. Social movements, from climate activism to LGBT+ rights, have continued to shape the country. So, where is America headed next? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, history is still being written. Now it's time to test what you've learned. You'll take a short 5-question quiz to see how well you remember key moments in American history. No pressure, just a fun way to check your knowledge. Great job making it this far. By watching this video, you've expanded your knowledge and taken another step toward understanding history better. That's what learning is all about. If you enjoyed this journey through history, make sure to subscribe. We have tons of fascinating topics waiting for you: science, geography, famous people, and more. Keep exploring, keep learning, and check out our next video. Ready for the quiz? Let's go! Where did the Pilgrims land in 1620? Jamestown, Plymouth, New York, Charleston. Who wrote most of the Declaration of Independence in 1776? Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. Which amendment officially abolished slavery in the United States? First Amendment, 13th Amendment, 19th Amendment, 5th Amendment. What global event helped America become a world superpower by 1945? World War I, the Cold War, the Great Depression, World War II. Which major technological product was introduced in 2007? The Tesla Model S, the PlayStation 4, the iPhone, the MacBook Air. How did you do? Whether you aced it or learned something new, that's what matters. Keep watching, keep growing, and we'll see you in the next video.